Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're doing a special video news update. I'm doing it from my studio at home, and we have Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist. Clearly looks like he's working out of his home today, too. Is that right?
I am, Mike. It's good to be back with you.
All right. Yeah, it's been a while. We tried to get you on the show, but I know there's other things going on right now. There's this little pandemic thing, right? So,
Yeah, right. And just so you know, my children are somewhere in the background. So if one of them runs in for a quick guest appearance, just be
not a
prepared.
problem. Well, I want to talk to you about today, this week. It's actually ending this week. You had a big confab with the teachers who do middle and high school STEM projects or teaching or courses or whatever. And how did all that go? And let's start off with what you did or what you were doing this week. And then now that we're at the end of the week, we could talk about the result, how it went.
Sure. So there's a MiSTEM, Michigan STEM, really sort of coming together of teachers who are teaching computer science, teaching computer programming at multiple grade levels in middle school and high school. And, you know, as someone, I went to college and have a degree in computer science and a degree in computer engineering. I was a software developer right out of college in my career, software engineer at Microsoft. And so it was really awesome to be able to go and speak to people who are teaching this generation and future generations of people who will have a better understanding and more comfort with the idea of creating software. If we can, you know, have that be a skill, just like people develop the skill of writing, people can also develop the skill of programming. I think that's something that's interesting and important and will be kind of a baseline skill for people. And so I just wanted to talk with those educators and encourage them to continue. And I actually told a personal story. So I went to Farmington High School, and I was part of the first programming class offered at Farmington High School. I graduated in 2000, and it was a class we were learning BASIC, just to give you some perspective. And what was really interesting, and I'll never forget about that experience, was our teacher, and I unfortunately I can't remember her name, but our teacher was learning it at the same time we were. And so we had this really amazing group where the 11 of us in the class and the teacher were all working together to figure this stuff out. And it was really great. And I saw this notion of her, you know, trying stuff and like, oh, well, that didn't work. Guess we got to try something else. That didn't work. Got to try something else. And that was really important because it showed me what skill acquisition actually looks like. It looks like trial and error. It looks like doing some research and then doing an experiment and seeing what happens and then changing as a result. And that approach really stuck with me. It was an amazing way to learn. And so I was just encouraging them that, you know, I remember my experience learning computer programming for the first time. And I can only imagine what it's like for the kid to learn it now, where the tools are so much better. And, you know, and the teachers, you know, they've had some experience, but, nevertheless, it really set me on the path of becoming a technology professional, in a way that I really benefited from.
Well, what exactly happened? You know, I imagine this was all virtual, right?
Yeah, so it was all virtual. So I was able to kick off this sort of 5-day conference, if you will, where there were all sorts of opportunities to connect, but also sort of, you know, professional development opportunities. I was not the only speaker. There were some experts talking about tools, talking about new content delivery mechanisms, talking about the importance of computer science education in the context of the education environment that we are all currently trying to figure out when it comes to COVID. And I just think it was really important. And it speaks to the fact that, you know, education professionals, they deserve so much of our respect. And even in the context of this thing where the world is going so crazy around us, they were seeking to get better at their craft so they could better serve their students. And that the professionalism, the commitment, the intensity of their excitement was something that was very palpable to me. And I think that energy carried throughout this 5-day exercise. And I think it's going to make them all stronger professionals who are better able to serve their classrooms or their classes as a result. The folks who were on the call with me were super energized. And I know that they said their colleagues and other people they knew from around the state were going to be participating all week.
Yeah, well, good. Then I mean, we should probably talk about STEM. I mean, you and I are got picture, and certainly by having the teachers really understand it and be able to convey it better to our students, that's going to be a good thing, right?
Well, absolutely. I think that one of the things that was important to me in my development as a technology professional in the earlier part of my career was I had to see examples. I had to see what it meant. Like I remember in 11th grade, I had a job shadow day where I went and shadowed a guy who was a developer at CompuWare
Oh,
at their office that used to be in Livonia.
right.
And it's hilarious because like in hindsight, it was pretty mundane. Like I was basically like sitting watching this guy type. But as an 11th grade, I thought it was so amazing. Man, this guy's like making software. This is great. And blah, blah, blah. And so I think as we talked about STEM education, we need to talk about how we invest in creating exposure opportunities for children. And I think it's especially important for children of all communities. So kids of color, think like I benefited from the Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program, DAPSEP, the first robotics program. DAPSEP has a sister organization in Grand Rapids. It does some very similar work. That's really important that we make sure that kids, and in particularly our communities of color, have exposure, not because everybody needs to be an engineer or a mathematician, but I do think all of us need to be exposed to it because we may like it. It may be something that we want to do, but we never know that if you're not exposing children to it. And so that's what these education professionals are really committed to. And I think all of us need to be committed to creating a space and opportunity for that. And that's why, you know, as a state, we've continued to invest in the DAPSEP program and others that are like it and continue. You know, we're the only state that has a state allocation for the FIRST robotics program, which is why we have the biggest FIRST robotics program in the country. And so I think it's really important that we continue to prioritize investing in these skill building and skill exposure opportunities for our children.
Let's talk about why that's so important in the sense of when these kids come out of high school and go on to college or whatever they do at that point. I mean, how many jobs out there in the state are begging right now because they don't have people with the appropriate STEAM, we'll call it, because you got to throw arts in there now too, related backgrounds or degrees. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. We're talking what, hundreds of thousands of jobs that are
there are absolutely
right now?
Yeah, there are absolutely hundreds of thousands of jobs available. And one of the things that is important to us at the state level is we've chosen to make investments that show that people being able to acquire these skills to be qualified for these jobs is a priority for the state of Michigan. That is why we work so hard to pass this past March, I believe, it was either March or April, the Michigan Reconnect program that I've been talking about for a year and a half,
Right.
which is a program that will have the state pay for people to acquire professional certifications and technical certifications and associate's degrees from community colleges, because we need to make that down payment on building our skills and our human capital. And so this is a priority for the state of Michigan because being able to have Michiganders be qualified and ready to fill those jobs and to pursue those professions, that's a strength of our state. It allows us to continue the legacy that we have of having more engineering talent, especially in southeastern Michigan, than in any other region in the country. And we can continue that. And what I also want to be true for, you know, our students who are coming of age now and who will be coming of age in the future is Michigan, we can develop some of the most well-rounded students in the country. Like imagine if we had students who were able to match their prowess when it came to the liberal arts, with all of them having some modicum of ability to be able to program.
Right.
That's really powerful because, you know, then you can imagine people will have ideas and being able to bring those ideas to fruition independently rather than having to be reliant upon someone from someplace else to have to go in and you have to kind of seed your ideas to them because they have skills that you don't. Imagine if you at least have the idea and the wherewithal, the ability to build your own prototype, to build your own MVP. That's a really empowering notion. And I want that to be true of all of our young people in Michigan.
Yeah, even old people like me. I mean, I've got an MVP I'm developing for a broadcast technology, and I didn't code it because I really don't know how to code. But it's in the works, and that would have been really nice if early in my life I would have learned to code. I mean, one of the skills I look back on in high school was I learned to type, and now I'm a touch typist. I never look at the keyboard Now,
Hmm.
it'd been nice back in high school if they'd offered coding, and maybe I'd be doing the same thing, right? So
Yeah, I mean, well, what that speaks to is, again, like your school offered that exposure and said, we're gonna offer a keyboarding class,
right.
right? And so taking that a step further, that's why the programs in professional and vocational training are so important. So whether and I think it matters obviously for STEM and like we're talking about, but it matters for the arts. It matters for I toured a facility, or I went to oh my goodness, it wasn't Wyandotte High School. I went to a high school downriver, and I toured their vocational training facilities, and they had everything from putting you on a path to being a dental hygienist, or putting you on a path to be a welder, or putting you on a path to be a network engineer, doing Cisco systems and things like that. Exposure is what matters. Just like we want kids to have exposure to literature and want kids to have exposure to life sciences. It's also important that people are exposed to different sorts of professional avenues and pathways, and that's what it's all about. I am big on exposure because I think exposure unlocks imaginations, and when those imaginations are fed, then people will go and we can see them bloom.
And the beauty of coding is you don't need a 4-year degree. I mean, a lot of, I think you're one of them, went to the U of M and got a computer science degree. And what you learn your freshman year, by the time you get to be a senior, I wouldn't say it's obsolete, but maybe it's not as used as much. And you got to wonder, why did I do that?
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, I interned at Microsoft while I was in college. I interned 3 times, and it's like I learned how to program in one language in college, at Michigan,
Right.
and then I learned how to be a software engineer in a whole different language, a whole different architecture
Right.
at Microsoft. So that's true. That one of the things that you learn, though, when you learn the program is you learn it's a mode of thinking. It's like it's structured problem solving.
Sure.
Anybody can learn syntax. You can learn that this language needs semicolons and this language indentation matters and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But what it's about is teaching you those building blocks of structured problem solving that can be then transferred, even if you don't go into engineering as a profession. Like now, I'm a policymaker. I'm a public servant,
Sure.
but the way that I approach problem solving is grounded in my engineering education, and I think it's helpful and it's served me well.
All right. And so now this program is wrapped up. Is this something that you want to repeat going forward?
I certainly think it will be important that computer science educators continue to collaborate and continue to come together for areas of opportunity for professional development, and also just ideas about the best seed, whether it's methods of delivering instruction, curricula, et cetera. And so I will certainly support educators continuing to collaborate in that way going forward.
All right, good. Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Your students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.